Hi, everyone. My name is Philip Åhlin. I'm a PhD student from Chalmers University of Technology in Gothenburg in Sweden. Since 1 year back, I have been at UPM, or Universidad Politécnica de Madrid, as an exchange PhD student through the new Erasmus program targeting PhD students. I will hold a seminar today about literature reviews as a part of this new series of seminars on various topics related to being a PhD student. So what I will talk about today is what is a review in general, what different types are there, why do you want to do one, and how do you do it? And this is a big topic within the research world. The number of literature reviews, and specifically the number of systematic literature reviews, are increasing, and specifically claims about doing systematic literature reviews, but there are great differences within various fields on how you should conduct one. My origin is within the field of operations management, and that is a field that does not generally use the golden standard of how to do a systematic literature review. There are a lot of deviations. And I will try to follow more what is communicated from the field of medicine that has used systematic literature reviews for a long time, according to the golden standard. So just some background. My research concerns how to improve the flow of patients through large healthcare organizations or through hospitals. And previous research has mostly looked on how to improve the flow of patients through various parts. While in my research, I try to take a holistic grip on patient flows and what is hindering swift and even patient flows through hospitals and what is enabling it. And when I initiated my PhD studies, I did my first study on what is hindering or what barriers are there to patient flow. And then I thought it would be good to get this systematic assessment of what knowledge there were. And therefore, I decided to do a systematic literature review on barriers to hospital-wide patient flows. This was transformed into a paper that was published in the journal Health Policy, which publishes articles in on numerous topics, but one big focus is on systematic literature review. So it was very fun to have it published there. And I will use this article as a model that I connect to when I talk about how to do systematic literature reviews. All right. So with that introduction, what is the purpose of conducting a literature review? Well, there are many. One could be to shed light on research gaps in previous research, something that a lot of PhD students begin their PhD studies with, trying to understand what research gaps there are. Another purpose is to explore the way forward for future research. It can be done many times, but by senior researchers to more kind of explore what research should be done now and what has been done. One other purpose is to locate your original work within the existing literature. If you did something that was published many years ago, what has happened to it? What has been, how has it been used? Another purpose is to identify and resolve conflicts across seemingly contradictory previous results or previous studies to kind of bring clarity to academic confusion, or what you would say. Another purpose is to place each work in the context of how it contributes to an understanding of the subject under review. And last, to identify what has been covered by previous scholars to prevent you needlessly duplicating their effort to not reinvent the wheel. So there are a lot of purposes to why you would conduct a literature review. And generally, there are two approaches to a synthesis of literature. One is an aggregative and one is an interpretive. The aggregative has a focus on establish finding beyond doubt. It's generally when you have more quantitative methodological focus, you want to gather all data connected to your research purpose or your research question. Each study adds weight, and you have a very clear, a priori defined methodology that you follow point by point. An interpretive synthesis of literature, it's more of a where you want to broaden an understanding of a phenomenon, where you may reach theoretical saturation, where you feel that there's not more perspectives to be found. And there's always value in identifying the disconforming case. And it's more of an iterative methodology. Snowballing techniques is something that all of you have heard of before, of course. And this is a more typical way of doing an interpretative collection of literature. So these are kind of the two very broad divisions of or types of literature reviews. So what are the most common types then? Well, we have the narrative review. A definition of this one provided by Arksey and O'Malley 2005 says that narrative reviews do not aim to answer a research question. Rather, they aim to summarize the available data on a topic in a descriptive format. Narrative reviews are more similar to literature reviews or book chapters than research papers. And generally, no methods need to be followed because you are kind of telling a story of a particular topic. And this is something that most of you are doing when you are writing a previous literature chapter, when you're writing an article, for example. Then we have scoping reviews. And a definition provided by Dot et al. 2013 tells that scoping reviews aim to map the literature on a particular topic or research area and provide an opportunity to identify key concepts, gaps in the research, and types of sources of evidence to inform practice, policymaking, and research. So it moves a bit further in methodological rigor. Then we have systematic reviews. And with this definition by Moon et al. 2018, it says that a systematic review uses explicit, systematic methods that are selected with a view to minimizing bias, thus providing more reliable findings from which conclusions can be drawn and decisions made. And there are a lot of words kind of implicit in the word systematic, that you say that your review will be more explicit, more transparent, more methodological, more objective, standardized, structured, reproducible. And all of these words can also be used when describing these types of reviews. Then we have kind of a fourth type called meta-analysis. And that is generally a review where you take several reviews in a more quantifiable way to explore what has been done before. So this definition by Levinson and Preutz 2017 tells that a meta-analysis goes beyond critique and integration and conducts secondary statistical analysis of the outcomes of similar studies. It is a systematic review that uses quantitative methods to synthesize and summarize the results. And this is something that you mostly only find or not only, but it's very common in medicine, and not that common in operations, the field of operations management. So Then there are ways to differentiate these more specifically, the scoping review, the systematic review, and the narrative review. If we look at if they summarize previous research on a topic, this is something that all of them are doing. When it comes to including data analysis methods, narrative reviews generally don't include any data analysis methods, while the others are. When it comes to identifying gaps in knowledge, this is the focus of scoping reviews and narrative reviews, while systematic reviews does this sometimes. It is not necessarily needed or the focus. When it comes to providing a broad overview of a topic, this is something that is generally required of a scoping and a narrative review, but the systematic review is supposed to be more narrow and more specific and not providing this broad overview. When it comes to providing a detailed synthesis of a research question, then we have the opposite, that the scoping and a narrative review generally does not provide a detailed synthesis, while a systematic review is really focusing on providing a synthesis of a research question. And when it comes to establishing, having an established methodology, this is considered needed for both scoping and systematic reviews, but not for narrative reviews. And concerning the level of evidence, it's considered much higher for systematic reviews and moderate or low for scoping reviews and very low or none when it comes to narrative reviews. And this is based on an article by Moon et al. 2018. So when you we now kind of have this general idea of what types of reviews there are and when you would need when you use one before the others, we can move to the next step, which is to formulate the objective of your literature review, which helps you to guide your review and maybe also your research question. And there's a statement that you generally would use that is, in short, called PICOTS. It tells that you need to define the population or the problem of your research object. You need to define the intervention that your study is going to make, or the intervention or application of a theory or method. That you can define a comparison that you do, which is very common in the medical field, but in a more managerial or operations management field, it would be that you compare various interventions or theories or methods, for example. You have to define the outcome that you look at, the knowledge generation, the result, the achievement, the timing. What is the duration? What is the date of publication that of articles that you would like to include? And in the end, the study type that you will study. Are you looking to study case studies, longitudinal studies, interventional studies, etc.? If you can formulate a PICOTS statement, you will have a much easier time to formulate the sharp research question, and by that guide more easily how you will formulate your literature review. So that was kind of the background. Now we move into how we actually do a literature review, and there will be a focus now on systematic reviews, as that is what I have done before. When conducting and presenting a selection of articles, there is a paper by Moer et al. 2009 that has become highly influential and kind of have set the golden standard within many fields. They present then the preferred reporting items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis called have a statement that they called Prisma then. Going from identifying articles, screening them, checking quality, eligibility, and then ending in what articles you actually include in your review. And based on my review, this is from my article, where it then generally looks like this. You have the identification, the screening, the eligibility, and the inclusion part. And I will go through all of this now. This is just the overview. So beginning with identification, where you make your first search within various databases to capture all the articles that would be that you may target that will be interesting for your review. When you do that, you, of course, this is things that most of you know of, but still people struggle with identifying a really good search string. So to begin with, you always try with some kind of first keyword and a second keyword, and it gives you a first hit, first selection of articles. Then you realize that there are various types of synonyms that might be better to use for your first keyword, and there might be synonyms to your second keyword. So you then try them to make a more a broader search, for example. So you use a selection of these keywords, A1, A2, A3, and then you add them to B1, B2, B3, and you get another selection. However, you then realize that maybe it becomes way too broad, so you need to add even more keywords, with topic C and topics D, and then your search string might look like this in the end. In the end, the goal is to both make a sufficiently broad search, so you really include all the articles that you're interested in, but also make it narrow enough so it's precise, so you get rid of all the articles that you're not interested in. And this might feel easy when you're talking about 50 articles. Anyone can read through 50 articles, but when it comes to that you identify 2,000 articles or 10,000 articles, then it needs to become more precise. So when I did my search, I began with the medical database called PubMed. And in each database, there are various differences in how you make a search. So for example, here you add to each word the short called TIAB, which means title and abstract. That this word, they will look in this database, in this search, they will look for it in titles and abstracts. So when I had reached that this was the best possible search string for PubMed, I had to translate it to what it would look like in the database Scopus. And they have a different structure where you instead to your word add the word title abs key. So they look for this word in titles, abstracts, and keywords. And then I had to translate it to Web of Science too, where you have the TS saying title and subject. So they look for the same things, the word in the title, in the abstract, and in keywords. Anyway, what is a good recommendation is to use the help of librarians. They're experts in this field. I took a lot of help from a librarian, and they can really direct you into how to formulate a good research string and how to translate it from one database to the next. Because if you don't do good translation, then you might get a completely different search in the other database. And the goal to do it in different databases is that not all articles, you may not find all articles in just one database. So then we move into the screening part in order where you very high level screen titles and abstracts and to see if they are applicable to your study. Then you will formulate inclusion and exclusion criteria. For example, that in my case, that I formulated that the articles had to contain an abstract, they had to be written in English, They had to be a qualitative or quantitative empirical primary study on patients receiving hospital care and contain at least one description of a patient process-related barrier, and that they were published between the 1st of January 2010 and 1st of November 2020. And exclusion criteria, which might be even more important, that I excluded articles focusing on primary care or care within a rehabilitation setting, healthcare processes not relating to the hospital patient process, description of theories, methods, or models without empirical data, editorials or policy statements without immediate empirical support, and literature reviews. Here, it is so much better if you are more than one person. And I would say in many journals would not accept your paper if you haven't been at least two persons screening the articles to remove bias. All right, so the next step is eligibility, or to assess the quality of your articles. And this, I guess, is the kind of first, is when there's a clear division between various fields. In operations management, it's not that common to find systematic literature reviews that really makes a real assessment of the quality of the included articles, while in the field of medicine, this is more or less necessary, or it's mandatory. So here is an example of a model for how to evaluate articles, originally presented in the paper by Moher et al. 2009, the article that I told you about that developed the Prisma statement. But here, Adam et al. 2012 made an adaptation. And here, they go through all of their included articles, and they state, and they then go through this list to see, is there a focused clinical question clear? Is a focused clinical question clearly stated? Are the search methods used to identify relevant studies clearly described? Was a comprehensive literature search performed? Yes or no? And then it continues. And by this, it is possible to grade the various articles that you have in your review to with what quality do they come. And this is interesting because in some instances, when you want to capture all literature, you might be open to gray literature. Gray literature would be conference papers or reports or any type of literature that has not been published in a peer-reviewed or in a journal and been going through a peer review process. Sometimes when the number of articles that are out there is very low, you might want to include gray literature, and sometimes not. And then it's more hard to make these quality assessments because the literature is very different. They differ much from each other. In operations management, there's a lot of qualitative research or research based on qualitative research methods. Then it's much harder to make this kind of qualitative assessment. So that is also one reason why you wouldn't find that so much within the field of operations management, for example. While in medicine, there's much more quantitative data or mostly quantitative data, and therefore it's easier to develop this kind of assessment that you can then go through each study. Anyway, there are a lot of these types of models or eligibility criteria lists found for qualitative research too. Yes, so the next step is then the final inclusion. So when you have reached a final number, that in my case, I included 92 papers. I began with around 2,000 papers and then moved down to 92 papers. Then it's important to present your included articles. And this is what you find in a lot of systematic literature reviews, that you have this description of the authors, the year of publication, the country the study was done in, the type of study design. As this is from a paper that is like I study patient flow in hospitals. They have also included the setting of each study. And then in the end, in this paper, they made this qualitative assessment and they present then the quality score, which is important when you discuss your findings, what quality the various papers have. So the evidence become stronger if the quality is stronger, potentially, depending on. But it's something to be highlighted in your paper. What you also find many times is that the journals want you to publish your search history. So this is important to not delete or to not have, that you actually present how you went about to make your search inclusive and precise, moving broad, moving narrow. So they can really follow how you built up your search string to make it really transparent. So, and then there's a lot of literature on how to make proper reviews. The book Business Research Methods by Bell et al. Has a lot of examples of how this is done. I followed the book Systematic Approaches to Successful Literature Review by Booth et al., which was also very helpful. So with that said, then I think that it could be valuable for us to have some kind of group discussion. It might be hard because we're so many, but feel free to ask any question, and then either I or any of the professors attending can maybe answer as well. But I have some questions that I will present to you that you might want to think about. So one is, when you are reviewing your literature, what purpose is guiding you? And for your coming paper, are you planning to do a narrative, a scoping, or a systematic literature review? And why? Many times people are planning to do systematic literature review, but what they really want to is to cover, to make a broad assessment of the topic. And as we've learned now, then there's no need to make this very tedious and hard, follow that more difficult literature review process. For your review, have you formulated, or are you able to formulate, a PICOS statement? And when do you think it is preferable to conduct a scoping review or a systematic review compared to a traditional review? The ideas might differ there, depending on what field you are in and so on. Then, when is it preferable to try to publish a literature review compared to having it as a part of a normal paper? There could be times when you'd make a very large literature assessment or a review to a paper, and your reviewer would like you to exclude the review and publish it as a review paper because they think that the scope of the article becomes too big. And then, is there a point in publishing a systematic literature review, or is a scoping review sufficient within your field? And these, I think, could just be questions that you can look at while I open up for any questions or ideas or comments. Well, thank you for listening, and I open up for a discussion.
Surely before or after, there is a question on the chat.
Yes.
Regarding your opinion about how to use AI to identify articles, papers. What do you think about?
Oh, it's it's a hard question for me to talk about. I haven't really come to a conclusion yet what I think about AI in research in general. So I mean, there's probably I think the important thing is to be very transparent when it comes to publishing. I would guess that a lot of journals would accept the use of AI, but I think you really need to uh, be transparent. AI can probably be very helpful in formulating that research string, which took me 3 months. So if you with AI can do it in a week, you save a lot of time, but maybe it's not the best search string. I think that is always the case. AI can be very helpful, but you never really know if if it's correct. I don't know. Yes, the presentation is recorded, so I think it will be provided to anyone who wants it. And
The next question is similar about to have access to the recording of that.
Yeah,
Yes.
we provide a link.
Yes, the link. Sí.
Yes, I think that there's been an inflation in doing systematic literature reviews. It looks very nice to do one. Maybe I shouldn't have needed to do one myself when I did it. It depends on your field. So I think that you can still state that you have done a rigorous or a comprehensive literature review, and you don't have to thread into the field of systematic literature reviews necessarily. Because when you use the word systematic, you will also be evaluated based on that you have stated that or that you claim that you have been systematic. So that is kind of one thing I would like to send to you, that there is really nothing wrong in doing a scoping review, and maybe it will make you more pragmatic. You will move forward more quickly, and maybe it's not needed within your field. However, it can be very teaching if you're interested in doing something very systematically. Yes, there are some questions. I will take the first one. Can this approach be used also for non-review articles? I think being systematic can probably help us in any part of life. However, I think we always make this kind of we have to make this decision on if we have the time to be systematic or not. But yeah. Good question, the last one. Some journals, maybe they lack the knowledge to assess it. I don't know, maybe. Some journals, all of them cannot focus on systematic literature reviews, maybe. I don't know. I think that this is something probably the professors in the field know better than management. I think that there is a large interest in more. If you open up to a lot of systematic literature reviews, maybe you will have less articles with interesting case research and more granular case data. So you just don't want to be that far away from the empirical material, I guess. So that is why some you can read at their web pages that they don't want systematic literature reviews. They more want you to make a narrative review as a part of your case study, for example. I think that could be a reason, but I don't know.
Yeah, basically is that, and also because they are focusing contribution.
Mm.
The review is kind of, well, you will describe what is out there, and there is no real contribution as such. Then probably the reason is because of that in most of the cases. At least. But yeah, you are right. They are focused on seeing something new, something special case, something data, new data, etc.
Philippe, I have a question.
How do you go about the actual reading of the articles? Because maybe you end up with, I don't know, 100 articles. Do you need to read carefully throughout all the articles? How do you do that? Or what is there a...
Yes, okay, I think I get the question. If you didn't hear, one in the room asked me, how do you go about when you have these 100 articles to read? And that is kind of when we move beyond the actual collection of articles that I talked about. So as I ended up in 92 articles, how did I go about to read those 92 articles? Well, I mean, in some way, I think that when you have reached those 92 articles, that's kind of when you start over from the beginning, like if you would write any type of paper, you probably have to read 90 articles to read up on the background, and those articles you really need to read all literature review, which can take a long time. You know that these 90 or 100 articles are really on point. They are really good for the purpose of your paper. So those I read from A to Z, those 92 articles. However, before, when you are more in the screening phase, then you really have to be careful about the time you have, when you might have 1,300 articles to read. But what you can do is that you divide it. If you're 3, then you can read 450 articles each, and you just read every third one. It reduces some bias. You can also decide that if you're 3 in your team, that you read each one. But I think that reviewers would think that it's reasonable that you would divide it into 3 piles, and then that you only read the abstract. Yeah, kind of. So what I at least hope that I have brought forward is that you should think one more time about what kind of review that that is most suitable, and that formulating a Picot's statement can help you on your way.
There is another question.
No, another question.
In the second, the last systematic review. Why, when, answer in 2 sentences. Resume your talk, please.
You do it because you have a very specific research question for a specific topic, where you want to conclude, is it like this or not, or how much is it like this or not, or quite specific. But it's hard to summarize it because you really need that Picot's statement. But that I would say is the why, and the why kind of coincides with when too. But the more precise it becomes, the more reasonable it is to do a systematic literature review. a systematic literature review.
Regarding the when, I think the question could be understood like at what point in time, or when I'm having a good knowledge on the field. You know, the point. I think this is more or less the, if I answer correctly, the when.
Yes.
interest. What do you think?
I probably think that a systematic literature review should not be done by a PhD student at all. That the PhD student should be part of it, but it should be led by a professor, I think, and that in the initiation of your PhD process, you should do more of a scoping or a scoping review. However, if you quickly realize that there is this granular question that you really need to know how to go forward, how to proceed, and that is more specific. But I think as a more important generally to do a scoping assessment to get to know your field, to make a broad assessment of what knowledge there is out there, and to identify how to fill it. And the systematic review would be something you use when you're in that gap to define something specific further on. However, for teaching to do a systematic literature review, so if you have the time and you really are willing to put up that effort, then I think it's very rewarding to do a systematic literature review. Well, I have always used throughout all my PhD studies, I've used the software NVivo, where I've used it both for interview studies, for case studies, and for my initial systematic literature review, which I think is an excellent program for just archiving and sorting all your articles, or all your case data or interviews, and then commenting or archiving it in a clear and systematic way. So, but at UPM, I'm sure that you have other. If you don't have NVivo, then you have another software that is good. But that is the one I've used at least.
Which one? Sorry.
NVivo. I don't know who has developed the software, but yes. All right. There's 7 minutes more. If there's anyone, hopefully it was teaching, and you can watch the video again if there's anything, and you can also reach out to me on my email, and I will be happy to answer any questions concerning reviews.
Thank you very much, Philip.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you for your presentation. I think it's very interesting for most of us in this moment in the making the PhD, and thank you for all the attendance too.
Thank you. Bye.